In 1995, the Cali cartel prepared $35 million in cash. They negotiated the purchase of a decommissioned Soviet military submarine to transport 40 tons of cocaine. Speedboats failed against United States Coast Guard radar. The cartel controlled 80% of the global market. They required absolute stealth to protect billions in untraceable street revenue. Corrupt Russian naval officers at the Kronstadt base agreed to the price. The massive diesel-electric warship would bypass mainland radar grids completely. The deep water guaranteed total logistical dominance. The transaction required an international organized crime broker. The Cali cartel employed Ludwig Feinberg. He operated a massive criminal syndicate directly out of Miami, Florida for several years. Feinberg possessed direct communication lines to the corrupt Russian naval officers. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Nuclear-era naval hardware became widely available on the black market. Feinberg traveled directly to Russia. He inspected the decommissioned Soviet Project 641 submarine. NATO designated this massive, deep-water diesel-electric warship strictly as the Heavy Foxtrot class. The operational logistics were terrifyingly simple. A skeleton crew of former Soviet submariners would navigate the heavy steel vessel from St. Petersburg directly to the coast of Colombia. The Cali cartel would load 40 tons of pure cocaine inside the torpedo bays. The Russian crew would cross the Pacific Ocean and anchor deep off California. Smaller cartel speedboats would retrieve the massive payload in total secrecy under the cover of darkness. The United States mainland radar grids would detect absolutely zero physical targets. This single submarine run represented billions of dollars in untraceable street revenue. The cartel prepared the final $35 million cash payment for the Russian naval officers. The transaction never finished. The United States Drug Enforcement Administration monitored Feinberg heavily. Federal wiretaps successfully intercepted the Russian submarine negotiations over international open telephone communication lines. Federal agents launched Operation Odessa. They arrested Ludwig Feinberg in Miami in 1997. The Russian naval deal collapsed immediately. The Cali cartel lost their nuclear-era maritime asset. The operational failure forced a brutal strategic pivot. The cartel abandoned the acquisition of existing foreign military hardware. They decided to manufacture their own stealth fleet entirely internally. Syndicate bosses recruited private marine engineers. They moved the manufacturing operation into the dense mangrove swamps of Colombia. The ocean remained the only viable global distribution highway. International intelligence agencies heard rumors of these custom, jungle-built vessels. They labeled the unknown phenomenon Project Bigfoot. Nobody could physically confirm their existence. The Cali cartel funneled millions of dollars in drug revenue directly into the Colombian jungle. They demanded a vessel that could bypass the United States military radar grids. The engineers analyzed the failure of the speedboats. They analyzed the failure of the Russian submarine. They calculated the exact mathematical requirements for stealth, displacement, and cargo capacity. A $2 million machine sinks into the Pacific. Intentional destruction. 3 operators open the internal valves. Seawater violently floods the heavy diesel engine block. The submarine never returns. It functions purely as disposable packaging. The front bay holds $400 million of cargo. The loss represents 0.5%. Construction begins 6 months earlier. Deep Colombian jungle. Heavy steel scaffolding hides beneath dense camouflage netting. Silent diesel generators power the clandestine shipyard night and day. Mechanics build the 60-foot frame from raw wood. Workers pour thick layers of industrial fiberglass. The material cures fast in 90-degree heat. Radar signals bounce off. Range dictates survival. Massive fuel tanks consume 60% of the dark interior space. Cartel operatives load 8 tons of product into the bow. Launch requires absolute precision. Syndicates wait for high tidal surges. Heavy industrial winches drag the 60-foot machine through mud. It slides into the river tributary. The vessel sits just below the surface. Engineers calculate the exact ballast weight. Only the exhaust pipe and a tiny glass observation window break the waterline. Military forces intercept 1 out of 10. Cartel accountants write off the lost steel and fuel. Factories immediately build replacements. The mathematical model proves highly profitable. Logistics coordinators demand total silence. The crew cuts the main communication line upon entering international waters. 3 men vanish beneath the waves. The dark machine moves strictly north. The heat inside reaches 100 degrees. Toxic diesel exhaust leaks continuously into the cabin. The operators sleep shoulder to shoulder. They breathe filtered air through industrial masks. A single mistake triggers death. The hull contains thousands of gallons of explosive fuel. The compressed cargo sits inches away. One spark instantly incinerates the entire dark tube. The Pacific Ocean storm systems provide natural cover. 30-foot waves crash over the tiny exhaust pipe. The heavy water pressure tests the raw fiberglass structural integrity endlessly. The target destination is a grid coordinate off the Mexican coast. Smugglers wait in fast tactical boats. They track the incoming submarine using encrypted dark web GPS beacons. The submarine breaks the surface at midnight. The crew unbolts the thick epoxy seal. They transfer 8 tons of cargo into the speedboats. The handover takes 20 minutes. The speedboats race toward the shoreline. The submarine crew remains behind. Their final job involves sinking the evidence. The $2 million vessel drops into the black depths. It leaves no trace. The financial transaction finalizes on a digital ledger. The $400 million payload enters the land distribution network. Global radar grids scan the ocean continuously. Satellites track standard commercial shipping lanes. The submarine fleet slips entirely beneath this digital net. They register as background wave noise. Coast Guard technology specifically targets solid steel reflections. Fiberglass hulls absorb the tracking pings. The physical profile casts zero thermal signature. The deep ocean masks the engine heat. Cartels scale the construction rapidly. Factories standardize the physical blueprint. Anonymous marine architects reduced assembly time to 90 days. Fleet production output doubled within 3 short years. Supply chains function like legitimate global shipping lines. Logistics coordinators track every vessel using encrypted satellite uplinks. The network transports thousands of tons annually. Profits compound exponentially. Syndicate bosses treated the Pacific Ocean as a private highway. Competitors quickly adopted the exact same fiberglass hull designs. Trust in the hidden machine created absolute blind confidence. Financial managers laundered the incoming capital into European real estate. Billions in liquid cash required immediate deployment. The disposable submarine fleet acted as the core revenue generation engine. Engineers pushed the mechanical limits outward. Payload capacities increased up to 12 tons. Power demanded massive 4,000 horsepower commercial diesel engines. Independent criminal groups formed temporary strategic alliances. They shared the hidden jungle shipyards to split overhead costs. The manufacturing zones operated like multinational automotive assembly lines. Drug enforcement agencies relied heavily on outdated aerial surveillance. Spotter planes looked for white wake lines. Modified ballast systems dragged the vessels deep. Surface disturbance dropped to zero. A seized vessel meant nothing. The business model factored the loss into the operating budget. Smugglers simply launched 2 more units. Volume defeated interception through sheer mathematical probability. Cartel engineers began stripping out the human element entirely. They tested fully autonomous drone variants. Computers replaced the 3-man crew. GPS waypoints guided the heavy payload automatically. Removing human operators saved space. Life support systems vanished. Fuel tanks expanded further. The machine carried 20% more cargo. The mechanism achieved total cold mechanical perfection. Syndicates piloted the drones from air-conditioned offices in Bogota. Encrypted radio signals controlled the rudder adjustments. The ocean became a massive video game for the cartel logistics officers. Secondary tactics involved towing submerged metal torpedoes behind legitimate fishing boats. Coast Guard vessels approached the main ship. The crew remotely detached the cable. The payload sank away. The sunken torpedo rested entirely on the seafloor. A delayed buoy released 3 days later. A separate recovery team collected the submerged product. The original crew escaped. Production bottlenecks vanished completely. Jungle factories operated around the clock. Thousands of tons moved north unhindered. The shadow economy eclipsed the gross domestic product of small, legitimate nations. The unbroken success bred extreme operational hubris. Bosses expanded the network too fast. They recruited untrained mechanics to meet heavy demand. Quality control dropped. Tolerances became extremely loose. Fiberglass cracks under immense deep ocean pressure. Sloppy epoxy applications weakened the main structural seals. The mathematical probability of catastrophic failure increased with every new rushed hull launch. Engines overheated inside the cramped drone compartments. Saltwater corroded the exposed battery terminals. Total system blackouts stranded millions of dollars of cargo in the middle of the Pacific. The ocean eventually reclaims every flaw. A single structural breach floods the cabin instantly. The illusion of a flawless machine shatters against the raw violence of the water. The mathematical models failed against the ocean. Water pressure crushed the rush jobs. A single microfracture at 50 feet deep triggers instant, violent hull implosion. Military intelligence adapted to the drone network. Sonar operators stopped looking for steel. They calibrated the acoustic equipment to detect the rhythm of commercial diesel engines. New thermal imaging satellites bypassed the ocean's surface. Sensors tracked the faint heat blooms of the exhaust pipes, venting hot gas into the cold night air. Coast Guard cutters deployed fast interception boats. Tactical helicopters dropped snipers armed with .50 caliber rifles. They shot out the small fiberglass exhaust tubes immediately. The diesel engines instantly choked on seawater. The massive fiberglass hulls stalled completely dead in the water. Operators faced a brutal choice between capture or drowning. Standard protocol demanded scuttling. Crews cracked the intake valves. The rush of heavy water trapped men inside the dark engine block before they could escape. Boarding teams jumped directly onto the sinking hulls. They hammered thick wooden wedges into the open valves to stop the flooding. They secured the 400 million. Captured vessels provided raw intelligence. Engineers dismantled the captured drones. They extracted the encrypted GPS modules. The digital coordinates revealed the exact locations of jungle shipyards. Special forces raided the Colombian production lines. Heavy explosives leveled the steel scaffolding. They burned the fiberglass molds. The core manufacturing nodes vanished overnight entirely. The cartel operational budget bled out. Replacing one submarine cost $2 million. Losing the shipyard destroyed $30 million in fixed assets and stalled all future shipments. The supply chain froze, warehouses filled with unsold cargo. European real estate acquisitions collapsed due to lack of liquid cash. The financial dominoes fell rapidly. Bosses demanded immediate replacement vessels. Mechanics worked without sleep. They bypassed critical curing times for the epoxy seals. Structural integrity reached critically dangerous new lows. Experienced operators refused to pilot the rushed hulls. Syndicates hired desperate men with zero maritime experience. They navigated blindly. The machines vanished into the Pacific forever. The mathematical loss rate spiked to 40%. Profit margins evaporated. The cost of doing business exceeded the raw revenue. The shadow economy began to fracture. Rival cartels exploited the weakness. They bribed the anonymous marine architects. Competing groups stole the engineering blueprints and mapped out the remaining hidden delivery coordinates. The ultimate logistical machine cannibalized itself. The trust disappeared. The dark web GPS trackers proved useless when enemies monitored the exact same encrypted digital satellite frequencies. The $2 million disposable fleet lay scattered across the ocean floor. The perfect industrial mechanism failed. The ocean reclaimed the steel, the cash, and the men.